So talk to me about this, because you have been very vocal, you have been extremely passionate, and you've been, I think many people will think, enormously courageous, because you really have stuck to what you think and what you know, and you haven't allowed yourself to be derailed by any lobbyists on any side of this discussion. You've stayed true to yourself, and as I work with you, I know what you're like, and I'm not surprised in the least that you've done that. So what do you make of this? Do you see this as a victory?
I see it as a victory for fair sport.
Right.
You know, I'm a big believer that sport should be for everybody. Sport has absolutely shaped my life. You know that. You know, health. And so I think it should be available and accessible by absolutely everybody, but it always had to be fair. Safe first, to be honest with you, particularly in contact sports, then fair, and then ways to be inclusive. And I think what British cycling have now done, which is to follow track and field and swimming, to say, right, we're going to have a protected female classification and an open classification, means that everyone can do it. The experiment of where transgender is going and what performance, you know, changes happen, we can still do, because they can still compete in the open classification, and we can monitor that. And of course, it's a moving target, and it will change as different things happen. However, right now, all the science that we have, 17 studies around the world, all peer-reviewed, say that we cannot remove male puberty advantage. And that in Olympic sport ranges from 10% to 30%, which is absolutely colossal. And so what we were asking is that females were expected to give up their opportunities and their fair sport, and men were not being asked to do that. And that was always my problem. You know, and my history is of that East German era, where for 20 years the IOC did nothing to stop the cheating that was going on using testosterone. So I know firsthand what that feels like, and I did not want that to happen to another generation of young girls.
No, and so the people who oppose you, and there are many, and they're very vocal, and also, I'm quite certain, pretty vindictive and vituperative when it comes to trolling and all that other kind of nasty malice that people disseminate. What are they thinking and saying now? I know you're not their mouthpiece, but you are the person we're speaking to, and you do know what the full force of opinion on the other side is. So you have set it out so calmly, and it sounds so plausible and correct that male puberty gives a person, a competitor, an athlete, an advantage that you can measure, and it goes up to 30%, and that so determines the result of any kind of competitive sport that it can't be countenanced. And yet there is a very vocal lobby saying the opposite. What are their grounds for saying what they say?
Well, the vocal lobby is that we should just kind of put up with it, really, and it's fine to do this. What frustrates me is it doesn't go the other way. So transgender men, obviously male-identifying females, still opt to carry on and compete in the female classification. Yes. They can identify as however like, you know, as long as they're not on testosterone. I haven't met a female athlete who has a problem with it at all. It's just that doesn't go the other way. Again, it doesn't go to the men's races where someone can identify as a trans woman and compete in the men's races. They want to opt to go and race in the women's races. And you have to ask yourself why. That's because in something like swimming last year with Leah Thomas, we saw Leah go from 500th in America to first, beating 3, American Olympic silver medalists. They stand a much better chance when they opt to race in the women's category. And that's always been our point, is that why should women be less worthy of fair sport than men are? And you can be damn sure if it affected men, they wouldn't be accepting it. They would be changing it. So I just thought I just need to, I'll deal with the trolling. I'll deal with, you know, I mean, I've had death threats. The thing that probably bothers me is death threats to my family. You know what we're like as women, aren't we? As mums, we're incredibly protective. But my kids all behind me, they've all been involved in sport. My daughter did track and field at international level. My son at the moment is doing rugby. Big one did rugby too. So they understand it. And I've always basically said, let's just follow the science. But the people who really let us down, again, were the IOC. You know, if 7 years ago they hadn't made these really bad rules based on no science whatsoever, without bothering to engage any scientists around the world, any athletes around the world, then we wouldn't be in the place that we're in now. And it's the fact that they kicked women's sport to the curb yet again, you know, I don't really have an awful lot of good things to say about it.
Do you think that there's unnecessary heat in this debate? do you think that it's become a kind of war zone out there when really, I mean, in essence, it should be about human beings looking after each other, understanding each other, trying to help one another, and yet it's turned into this kind of sectarian, separatist, vicious kind of arena for combat. In such a way that many people won't even discuss it in public. Whatever their feelings are, whatever their thoughts, they'd rather move right away from the subject than even tackle it because they're scared of being cancelled. They're scared, as you say, of death threats, of general attack, of becoming suddenly persona non grata in a lifetime of a really kind of well-regarded career, respected person makes one comment and bang. And I wonder whether, as you've been at the real centre of it and you've really felt the force of it, whether you see a way forward that takes the heat out of it, takes it back to what it really is, which is just talking about people being people.
Yeah, well, when I originally started talking about this, literally the trans activists did everything in their powers to close the debate down because they didn't want debate, because they knew that the science didn't back up their position. And all we were ever asking for was, please just use the science.
Yeah.
You know, so it's about having respectful debate and then finding solutions for everybody. And for me, with sport, because it's what I know, it was about going, right, we should have fair, safe sport for females. And we must find a place for everybody. Now, whether that means creating extra categories or whether it means creating an open category, let's talk about this and let's find a solution.
Yes.
Did not want to talk about it. So the only way forward was to just go, well, you're not going to shut me up by abusing me. I'm just going to keep on putting these facts over and over and over again until eventually, you know, we can make the governing bodies listen. And that's what they have done. But it has taken quite a few years. And I'm
imagining quite a lot out of you. I mean, it's been a bruising arena, hasn't it, really?
Yeah. And, you know, what they do is they attack your work, which is why people are very frightened to voice their opinions. I mean, I have people on the telephone all the day, but I have coaches on the phone, you know, women coaches that coach international athletes in tears saying that they're being threatened with their jobs if they voice their opinions. And so it's that intimidation which is outrageous, and we really should not be tolerating in a civilized society.
Yes, and it's quite clear that being anti-trans could not be further from the issue here. It's not about being trans or not trans, it's about fairness in competitive sport. And the heat must be removed from that, and any kind of idea of bias or prejudice must be taken out of it, and it must be seen for what it is.
Yeah, and do you not think that actually by bringing all this animosity in, you make it very, very difficult for the majority of transgender people who just want to live their life quietly with respect, you know, and get on with it?
Yeah.
And I think that there's been a backlash, and that is really unfortunate, you know, because there is a clash of rights in certain areas, whether that's with regards to sport or whether it's women's prisons or whether it's safeguarding, you know, and again, we need to talk about these things openly and respectfully and use the facts and the statistics and the actual reality of the stats that we know, not just emotive language.
Absolutely. I remember doing, you know, the Vanessa show, which started in 1994, and I remember doing shows on trans individuals then, and it was kind of shocking. People were astounded. It was considered to be groundbreaking, hugely controversial. All I could see presenting, maybe I did 10 shows on that subject, maybe more, but all I could see was individuals, human beings, who'd had a really, really difficult time, a really rough ride in life. And I remember so clearly examples of people who had, for example, people born male who had, you know, joined the army and gone to work on oil rigs and tried to do very macho kind of sports and just tried to behave in a certain way in order to prove to themselves that what they were feeling, they weren't really feeling, in order to somehow triumph over the feelings that were defining them. And in the end, I remember pretty much all of them said the same thing, which was if they hadn't been able to transition, they probably would have had to kill themselves because they couldn't carry on living the life that they were living. And that's really what I mainly took away from it, from all those people I met all those years ago, that, you know, these people have really been through hell and, you know, deserve what everybody deserves: respect, understanding and everything else. And the fact that it's become such a vicious subject, I think is absolutely heartbreaking and also completely unnecessary, really.
I know. I just feel it's such a I feel it's so regressive that we've gone backwards with stereotypes. You know, I was a total and utter tomboy, right? I was up a tree, short hair, stunk of chlorine all my life, trained boys just pretty much all of my youth. Didn't make me a boy. And I think it's really important that that men can be as effeminate as they want to be and women can be as masculine as they want to be. However, it doesn't change your biological sex. So being progressive, a society that just accepts people's personality and expression, however makes them happy, rather than trying to put everybody into a box, which is where we've gone to. And I believe very strongly that's regressive, not progressive.